Hey guys, welcome back. It is just me tonight. Michelle's at work, and just the way this week has gone, it was easier for me to just do one solo. Sorry, a couple days late. I know, but I'll get my shit together eventually. I want to do something a little bit different for this episode. I wanted this to kind of be what I'm calling it for now is the comments section. And it's just going to be kind of going through and hitting some highlights of stuff that interactions that we've had on TikTok pretty much right now, because that seems to be where most people spend their time. Shocker. Uh, some stuff's funny, some stuff is, just kind of general Q&A stuff, but then some stuff is more like, oh, hey, let's catch up on this drama because some of y'all like to argue in the comments and it's kind of funny. Obviously, the people who are disrespectful, we get rid of. They get blocked. But all the rest of y'all get into some very interesting discussions. So we're going to kind of touch on all of that tonight. You might see random cats pop in and out. I've got cat hair all the fuck over me. They just decided to have a party out here with me tonight. So anyway, let's get right to it. The first, let's see, which one do I want to do first? I've got like 6 different videos here that have got some comments. Well, we'll go to the one this is the most polarizing topic to date that we have ever addressed, both on the podcast and through TikTok. And that's the issue of narcotics. And it is so sad to me to see how the newer medics, the younger medics, are continually getting shit on for basically being Candyman. And I don't get it. Like, what else are the pain meds for? What else are you going to use them for? Like, I understand that occasionally there's some, cross use for them, or you got ketamine, which can be used for literally every fucking thing except curing cancer, apparently. But for some reason, people just have this thing about pain management. And I mean, there's a lot of people in the comments who have said it very well, that it's a bunch of lazy motherfuckers that don't actually give a shit. But there was an interesting comment. This is from a Michael Pugh, where he said, "It's irritating when I get bitched at for giving narcotics. Quote, well, no one ever died from pain, end quote, is usually what I'm met with. Well, not for nothing, but if we mitigate that pain, we can conduct a more thorough assessment and have a better initial case for the ER. Plus, less screaming and pain for the patient is less of a chance of me getting a headache / frustrated. It's just a win-win in my opinion." Which is very fucking true because, I mean, to me, if you have somebody who is being purposefully dramatic, and if your parents, you understand this difference. There's a big difference between when your kids are being dramatic and when they're actually in pain, having a bad day, whatever. It's no different with adults. So you have people who are obviously being dramatic. Cool. I'll sit here and listen to it all day. There's no need for me to intervene with this. If I have someone who's legitimately in pain, who's sitting there, who's crying, who is legitimately yelling in pain, there's a little human element in me that says that's not okay. Like, I don't want to sit here and listen to this because that's not fair. That's not right for that person. And I have the ability to do something here and to show a little compassion. And so in that situation, I believe that I have the ability, I have the opportunity, and I would say it's the right thing to do. I understand it's discretionary. Like, I don't think that you can be sued for not giving pain management. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but I feel like this is something that we make it a hill to die on, and we really fucking don't. Like, this really doesn't need to be a thing. And you'll see that thread pop up at least once or twice more in some of these comments, that we pick these hills to die on that just don't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, this job, there is an art form to it. There are stylistic differences on things. So there's some things where it's like, bro, don't fucking care. Do what you fucking want. Like, it really doesn't matter. And then there's some things like this where okay, yeah, you can make arguments on both sides. You can have the discussion about the subjectivity of pain scales and all of that crap. I get it. But there is a line where your compassion as a human being should come into play. And I feel like with pain management, that's just one of those things where, yeah, okay, it's not a mandatory, but do something. And like, and a lot of services have been very good about providing other options. They're having what is it, like IV Tylenol, Toradol, as kind of like first steps for pain management. Don't require going full tilt to narcotics. Awesome, fucking awesome. If you can manage a patient's pain effectively with an injection of Toradol, cool, awesome, problem solved. That's all we're saying. Like, it's not like, oh well, if you don't give them fentanyl, or you don't give them morphine, or you don't give them ketamine, then you're a horrible person. No, just do something. Do your job. They're there for a reason. They are there for pain management. So manage the fucking pain. It's not about your personal convenience. So get the fuck over yourself. Anyway, so that particular video, and that was one I did more recently, just asking about professional compassion. What happened to that? Why are we hellbent on making this a thing? But there's a lot of good comments in that one. That is from March 3rd. So go back and take a look at that. The next one was kind of funny. It was an exchange between me and two other people, and it was on the video about, are you approachable? And the point of this video was, there's a lot of people. Although I've heard a lot of medics who are like, well, if they didn't feel comfortable writing the call, they should have said something. Well, when you have the personality of a porcupine, it's kind of hard for somebody to like feel like they can talk to you about stuff if you're not someone who is open to having rational conversations on stuff. If you don't listen to people, if you shut shit down, if you complain about everything all the fucking time, you put off this front of, you got these deflector shields of, don't fucking talk to me, don't fucking talk to me, don't fucking challenge me. Well, can you fucking blame them for not saying anything? So a shocker, the people who tend to fall in that category and behave that way are the paragods. And, they're, of course, our favorite people to deal with because they do so much for our industry and they're just, God's gift to fucking EMS. But, somebody just commented, and I hear this in like Neanderthal caveman style voice. And so that's how I'm going to read it. He goes, Paragod decides all. Paragod is truck ruler. Paragod knows all. And so, of course, I wrote, Paragod worthless to EMS industry. Thumbs chest. And then Sasha, it's some chick named Sasha goes, LOL, Paragods need to go back to school or be humbled. Hopefully not humbling situation at the cost of a patient, though. And I thought that was interesting because that brings up an interesting point that it's very hard for bad providers, for inept providers, to get humbled without it costing the patient something. And it sucks because our mistakes are our greatest teachers. If you're paying attention, your mistakes will teach you so much more in this job than anything else will. And you're gonna make mistakes. We've talked about this before, I believe, in the podcast. When I was, I forget what semester of paramedic school it was. I think it was during pharmacology and cardiology. We were doing some hospital clinicals, and our preceptor was a man who later became my boss for a while, who is also a great personal friend now. And he sat us down and explained to us, hey, you guys are about to become medics. There's some hard reality you need to get in touch with. And he was having this conversation with us over lunch, and we're just like, wow, dude, like we're having Subway, like, this is getting pretty morbid. But he said, each of you at some point in your career is going to kill somebody. Whether it's by incorrect action or failure to act, you're going to kill somebody. And he walked us through the steps of, hey, here's what this is like. And obviously, he's telling it from the perspective of somebody who has fucked up. There was no like pontificating, no putting himself up on a pedestal. This was a very brutal, honest conversation. And I wish that I had had the presence of mind to record it, because there's no way to repeat it fully, but that's always stuck with me. And I've always tried to approach my patient interactions through that lens of, am I benefiting the patient? Whether I'm acting or not acting, is what I'm doing, is each decision I'm making benefiting my patient ultimately? Am I giving my patient the best chance possible of a good outcome? And that was a promise I made to myself very early on. It wasn't even day one. I was still in school, that every decision I would make would be in the best interest of the patient. And no, I don't consider myself the smartest paramedic. There are so many people who are way more intelligent, who are more well read, who who have more of a pulse on the continually changing world of emergency medicine. I'm not that guy. I do my best with what I have, and I try to stay current, but I'm fully aware that I am not the most skillful, the most knowledgeable, the most amazing paramedic out there. I'm a regular dude. But I feel like that mindset has served me very well. Now, is there a possibility that my actions contributed to compromising a patient, and innocently even? Maybe. I'll be honest. I don't know of a specific situation per se, but I've also seen a lot of change happen just in my tenure in EMS. So it's entirely possible that some of the old ways we used to do stuff ended up being detrimental to patients, and we just didn't know it. So, I mean, I freely admit that, but I believe we should go the extra mile to make sure that we are being thorough and that we're being humble, because humbling experiences come at a cost, and it usually doesn't cost us nearly as much as it costs someone else. So being willing to look through that lens and have that perspective of, I could fuck up anytime. I could fuck up a patient's world so fast. I can fuck up my own world so fast. You really need to treat this job with a tremendous amount of respect. Otherwise, it's going to smack you in the fucking face. So, it kind of started off, haha, sort of funny, but interesting thought that Sasha brought up about, we need people to be humbled, but we want to make sure it's not at the cost of the patients, ultimately. Let's move on to another one, and this was also kind of sort of funny, but also has a moral to the story. And it was, the question posed was, who's responsible for morale? And the question posed by the video. And, is it the people on the ground? Is it leadership? Is it both? Like, what's the answer with this? And I don't know their actual name, but Medic175 commented, "You could shit out a golden egg and EMS folks would bitch about the size, shape, or carrot. Absolutely cannot make us happy for more than 5 minutes." It's true. I have not seen a single instance in my career where new equipment, new protocols, new whatever were brought out and people didn't complain about it. You get brand new fucking computers, brand new tough books. Oh, no, they got this wrong with them. I don't like this. I don't like this about them. The color's wrong. The space bar is the wrong size. Like, what the fuck? And my response to that was, Yeah, and they will play devil's advocate just to be argumentative, which is one of my pet peeves is if you're going to play devil's advocate, at least have some sincerity in it. Like if you're doing it from the perspective of, hey, like let's really push some buttons and kind of explore whatever this is that we're having a disagreement about. Okay, cool. But if you're just doing it just because you want to try to frustrate somebody, piss off. Honestly, piss the fuck off. Um, and then we have a user, that bearded one. Excuse me, bud. I'm the bearded one in this situation. Hey Noodle, come here. This is my main therapy kitty. You can't really see him, but he's a blob. That bearded one says that's just because of the rampant ADHD and EMS employees. Oh, shiny. This is also true. We are a very distractible bunch. But then Medic 175 ever replied or added a comment onto theirs and said, remove cancerous attitudes and pay better than the surrounding agencies, and you're better than halfway through the issues. I would tend to agree with him largely. I would say that's maybe an overstatement as far as it being half the issues. But that's a big chunk of the problem. We are our own worst enemies. We are the ones who are tearing ourselves down more than anybody else is. And we don't actually fight for the things that matter. We fight over the things that we find obnoxious. Which doesn't do us any good. But I agree with Medic 175, and we've said this a lot on this show, that there's no solution where we just accept everybody with open arms and say, oh, we'll make it work. Like, if you're really that fucking miserable in EMS, get the fuck out. If you're not willing to engage and have a rational conversation about bettering the field, get the fuck out. We don't need you. If you're someone who just has to suck all the wind out of the room and be a negative Nancy about every goddamn thing, get the fuck out. We don't care. We don't want to listen to it. Nobody wants it. You're not bettering anything. You're not doing your patients any service by sticking around here, so get the fuck out. It's not fucking complicated. So, but I think the initial comment was hilarious, that you could literally give EMS the best of anything. You can give us the best ambulance with the newest, shiniest monitors and, the newest vent and pumps and all the meds and everything, and somebody's going to find something to bitch about. It's a sad fucking reality. And sorry, we really need to do better with this. Like, this is really getting out of hand. Come on, guys. But anyway, if you go and look at this video, it was on March 8th. The can't see what the cover on it is. Anyway, it's the paramedic POV video. It says, who is responsible for morale? And that was on March 8th. Oh, now we get to the video about therapy. And this one is from 6 days ago. And I was quite surprised. Like, there was actually a good bit of positive response. But there was one series of comments in particular that I wanted to read, and it was from a user called, I think it's Crysma, CRYSMA. I don't know if that's supposed to be a nickname, acronym, or whatnot. But this person said, my dad was a cop for most of my life. He worked in the same county I did for years. He also knew when I'd have a bad call. He'd call me and ask me to help him with chores at his farm. We would sometimes talk about things we'd seen or done, and sometimes we wouldn't. My mom worked for social services, and she helped me understand some PEDS calls, suicides especially. I did try therapy, but honestly, it didn't really help. To this day, going out to help my dad with chores helps me a lot. There's something peaceful about the farm. I'm all about people figuring out what works for them. This is the part that really like grates my gears. I was forced to go to a debrief at work, and I hated it. I was told I had to go to set an example for the EMTs. The debrief messed me up more than the call itself. Different things work for different people. Listen, I understand the point of debriefs, and I think that offering them is a great and wonderful thing. 110%. But you're also going to have people that say, hey, I know me. I know how I process shit. I don't need this. This is going to make it worse, or it's not going to do anything. And I, yes, I can appreciate the whole set an example for EMTs, but your personal well-being and your right to decide about your personal well-being overrides that shit 110%. So I'm not sure the motivation of management forcing someone into doing this, but when it comes to mental health, yes, you should be pushing people to get help. Yes, you should be offering different options to them. Give them the time off to be able to go take advantage of those options. But also allow them the autonomy to figure out what works and what doesn't. And if something doesn't work, don't fucking force them to do it. Plain and simple. It's not fucking hard. Like, and I reference it in the video too. Like, no, therapy's not a one size fits all thing. I do think a lot more people need it. And I really honestly believe it's not even because of the job. Like, yeah, there's a lot of us that the job plays a role in our mental health. For me, it's not been that way. Not directly. Like I don't have nightmares about calls. I don't take calls home with me. I've had very, 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 very few calls ever in my career that had any kind of emotional effect on me. Um, one, I can think of two. Um, that I think I've referenced it before, but for you newer people, um, there was one time I was called out to an MVA, and it was two sisters who were going to school. They were driving to high school. Um, older sister was driving, and mind you, she was like a week away from graduation, and she she was already like going to join the military. They were going to pay for college. Like she had all these grand plans. Sister was, I think like a freshman or sophomore in high school, something like that. Um, so they were driving down the freeway, and a deer jumped out. This was, again, early in the morning. They're going to school, and the sister overcorrected, ran off the road down an embankment. This is a high speed highway in a pretty rural area, so there wasn't guardrails up. There weren't guardrails up. Excuse me, proper English. Um, there weren't any barrier walls. Nothing. Just drove off the side of the interstate and plowed into the trees. Um, so we get down there, and the sister who's the passenger, she was actually pretty well unscathed. Like she had a couple bumps and bruises, nothing crazy. So we got her out quickly. We had multiple units coming. This was a service that was actually pretty well staffed at the time. And our coverage was awesome. Big county, but we had lots of trucks. Um, so we got her up, and she was fine, ambulatory, no loss of consciousness, none of the things. She didn't even end up with she didn't even end up on a backboard, I don't believe. This was, thankfully, we had adopted the kind of a spinal immobilization rule out protocol back when it was new. So, but she didn't want to leave. Not until she knew how her sister was. Well, I was down with her sister, and sister didn't make it. She was deceased on impact. Um, it was obvious. So I went back up the hill, and her parents had already been contacted, but parents didn't know. Well, yeah. So anyway, she's on the stretcher of the other unit that showed up, and they're wonderful, and they're trying to calm her down and reassure her, but she will not leave. She will not get in the ambulance, nothing, until she knows how her sister is. So I have to tell this girl that her sister's dead. Not a conversation anybody wants to have. Like, it's one thing if we're talking with adults about adults, but when you're talking to a I say a child, a pre-adolescent individual, or not pre-adolescent, pre-adult individual, about their sister, that shit sucks. And no, it wasn't that I had a particularly emotional reaction to it. I actually didn't. I probably had the least emotional response of anybody who was on that call, really, honestly. And so anyway, so we told her, and she got loaded up in the ambulance, but still wanted to wait for mom and dad to show up. So we're like, okay, fine. Like, she's stable. She doesn't have to go right now. There's no other patients, so we're kind of just camping out at this point. Um, and so mom and dad show up, and they clearly didn't know. You could just tell by the way they were walking. They had no idea what had happened. So I see mom climb up into the ambulance. I'm pretty sure that it was actually, if I remember correctly, it was actually a stepdad that showed up with mom. The biological dad was coming, but mom and stepdad showed up. So mom climbs up into the ambulance. Stepdad is waiting outside the door, and all of a sudden, all you hear is wailing, screaming. And the stepdad just looks around at us and is like, what happened? Like, where is she? And I just had this moment where I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have this conversation again. And thankfully, I think it was an older firefighter, one of the older firefighters stepped up and kind of pulled the guy aside and was like, hey, like, here's what happened. And then the stepdad just collapses too. Like, good family. Good family. Heard nothing but amazing things about them in the aftermath of this call. But it's just kind of, that's one of those calls that you go from that to your next call is someone who, you know, is just having an inconvenience, and they decide to call for an ambulance, and they start asking you about your day. And you're like, well, I just had to pronounce a teenager dead on the side of the interstate. How's your day? So, there's stuff like that. But again, I didn't want to go talk about it with somebody. Like, I acknowledged it was there. It sucked, but that wasn't something I took home. Like, I worked it out on shift and I was fine. The most recent one, and this is the first time I've ever cried for a patient, was for a child who I believe was only, I want to say maybe 2 months old, if that. Um, it was kind of it was on a paved two-way road, but um, there was a line of cars that were stopped. I think it was for construction. It was either for construction or like somebody was making a left-hand turn and everybody had to stop. There was a fully loaded concrete truck that was probably doing about 60, 65, I think. And there was a line of 8 cars, and he hit full speed the back car, which compressed them all together, but it launched him off the concrete truck, literally like a fucking ramp, launched him off the side of the road. Well, that first car that was hit in the back seat was the kid. And he was not in great shape. And thankfully, I wasn't first on scene, so I didn't have to go in triage. I was pretty much directed to that vehicle and said, stay with it. Um, got mom out. She was not in great shape, but passed her off to an ALS unit, got her taken care of. And then I was stuck with baby, which we had a helicopter coming because, yeah, I mean, we weren't far from a trauma center, but like, this was not a great situation. And we were already behind with ambulances because there were a ton of injured patients. So it was this just weirdly surreal moment that I had with this kid. I didn't have a lot of extra hands, so it was literally just me sitting there assisting ventilations with this kid who was barely responsive to painful stimuli. And yeah, I still get a little upset about it now. Um, and so it was weird. It was this moment where like everything became quiet. Like there I couldn't really hear anything else. Like it was just the only world that I knew was that little kid right there who was still in his car seat that I was ventilating. Um and so the helicopter got there, and thankfully the flight medic that was there was somebody I knew. Someone who was also a father, and like we didn't have to talk a whole lot. Like I gave them report on where the kid was, what I'd found so far, you know, what the vitals that I'd gotten thus far were. Um, and they were outstanding. They're just I love our flight crews around here. They're absolutely fucking phenomenal. And I got the phone call the next morning from supervisor um who had actually been on that wreck. Um and and he and he told me that the kid had passed away that morning. And at first I took it and I was like, okay, you know, cool. Thanks for telling me. Um and I was just sitting in the kitchen at the station. I was the only one there. And I just I sat and cried for a while, and I've never done that for a patient ever. Never once, other than that moment. Um but I didn't need to talk about it with anybody. I had my feelings about it. I still do. But um the thought that ran through my head at the time was, this child was so young and knew so few people, um, that he that he deserved to have a stranger cry for him. And I think, knowing that my, you know, my time in EMS, at least full time, is not forever. I think I kind of let myself have my feelings a little more with that. Just say, you know what, like this is okay. It's fine. So anyway, other than those long, drawn out stories, um, I personally don't feel that the job itself has traumatized me that much. I guess I've seen some horrible things. But as far as what is persistent and what is affecting my personal life, has nothing to do with the job. It has everything to do with uh ow, seriously, dude. Sorry. It has everything to do with the rest of my personal life, with how I was raised, various experiences that have happened to me as an adult. All of those are things that absolutely let's fucking talk about it. Like I need a professional because there's some heavy shit to be worked on. So I think that we underestimate how much we really could use good therapy. And like we've clarified before, finding good trauma counselors, good trauma therapists that actually know this stuff. They understand heavy trauma, and even if they don't have experience with first responders, I'm sorry, I have a problem with the whole, oh, they don't understand us. Hold up. We're not that special. Okay? We're not that special that an entire profession of healthcare professionals, don't know what to do with us. I call bullshit 100%. Are there therapists that aren't equipped to handle some of the challenges that EMS providers can throw at them? Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's definitely those people out there. But to say that there's none out there, sorry, you're not looking hard enough. They're out there somewhere. And also, I think that we like our special victim status. And I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way saying that. We really like our special victim status, and we play that card, that noble victimhood, that, oh, we see the most horrible things, and it's the whole thank me for my service bullshit too. Even if they don't say that, that's what they want. They want the recognition for how horrible life is, the horrible things they see, how poorly paid they are. How about you direct all that energy that you spend to getting attention to actually addressing the problems in your life, addressing the real trauma that you need to deal with? How about we direct the energy towards that instead of drawing attention to ourselves, talking shit to the public whenever they ask us about anything? How about we do that instead? And therapy may not be the thing for you. You might need more cathartic experiences like what Chrisma was talking about. Go spend some time on a farm. I have friends who have had such good animal therapy, it's ridiculous. So, but what we should be trying, step out, try to find what works for you, and realize that different problems may require different solutions. There's certain traumas that you have faced, whether it's at work or at home or as a child, that you need to address one way. And then there's other traumas in other spheres that you need to address a different way. And that's okay. That's part of life. Figure out what makes you tick and what your specific hurdles are and go from there. Anyway, I'm not a therapist, obviously. I have as much fucked up shit to deal with as anybody else. But try, reach out, do something. Go take responsibility for your mental well-being, because your triggers are not my responsibility. They're not your partner's responsibility. They're not your significant other's responsibility. They are your responsibility. So you have to take ownership of that. Go do something about it. Anyway, let's move along. That was a little heavy. Yeah, let's do something a little more lighthearted. Oh yeah, we'll do something lighthearted, then we'll get into the fun stuff. Old Charlie 911 asked, "Bro, what kind of services have you worked for?" And so again, we go out of our way to not talk about specifics about our employers, either past or current. We'll occasionally reference things, but I guess I'll just provide a little more of a full answer to that, a brief timeline. And full time, I've worked for a couple of different services. You throw in part time jobs, and it gets a lot more, extensive. But I got my EMT the end of 2012. Did convalescent work until right after my son was born, in the beginning of 2014, and got my first 911 job. I was so excited, and had to learn a lot of hard lessons. It was good, a lot of good lessons, but it wasn't easy, and made a lot of friends with people that I'm still friends with now, that I still consider, people who were, influential role models early in my career. that I still love and respect. And then about a year and a half later, while I was going through medic school, um, I went to a larger service that was split between county and hospital. And the the uh, the funny thing was, no one could really give you a clean cut answer as to what the hospital owned and what the county owned. It was just this weird, like, you could never really nail it down. It's like, well, I have a hospital badge and get hospital paychecks, but I don't get paid like people in hospital do because we're county employees. So what are we doing anyway? Um, I was there for a couple of years. That was the service that I transitioned from EMT to paramedic. Um, Worked a variety of shifts there. I did 24s at first. That was kind of my bread and butter, 24/48s. Mind you, my starting pay as an EMT was, I want to say it was $8.65 an hour. As an EMT on 24-hour shifts. That fucking sucked donkey dick. It was actually a pay cut from the job I had before, but I saw potential for more upward mobility at that particular service. It was a lot bigger, had a lot more opportunities for people that wanted to move up, especially once I got their medic. So, did that for a while, and then I got burned out from 911 working in that place. And had some calls where I was like, you know what? I don't want to fucking do this anymore. I got paid enough to deal with this shit. So I so from there I went to a solely hospital based EMS service that services it was owned by the largest hospital network in the state. And when I first went there, my thought process was, okay, like I've cut my teeth as a 911 medic. I know what I'm doing. I want to explore critical care. I want to look into, I had the thought of I wanted to eventually work towards doing pediatric and neonatal critical care because I love peds. I love peds. Here for it all day. Love running ped calls. I know I'm weird, but after being there for a bit and getting to participate on a number of critical care calls, I realized I was like, I don't want to do that. Like I could do it. I feel like I have the competence to be able to do it. I just have zero desire to do this. I actually wanted to go back to 911 because it's like, well, I enjoy that. Like I actually did deep down enjoy it. I just needed a break because of where I was working. And so I worked my way back into 911. And then from there, switched to a QRV only service, which was awesome. I actually, uh, I started there as a newer platform, newer service, and great fucking job. And it's actually where I work now. I took a hiatus for about a year, but then decided to come back, and so that's what I'm doing currently, working 24/72s, and absolutely love it. I have made some amazing friends and have been a part of some wonderful things at the hospital only service. I was there when we piloted one of the state's first uh, blood programs, like when we rolled out blood on transport trucks, not helicopter. And I don't remember which number of because they used to keep track of, who ran, how many blood calls. But I think it was within the first week of us even offering the program, I had an activation in the field. And it wasn't even a trauma. It was a GU bleed because a patient had a DNC and had massive vaginal hemorrhaging. And to date, of all the things that I've gotten to do in EMS, blood administration is the coolest fucking shit ever. Like, I can't tell you how cool it is to literally watch them just turn on a dime. Literally, there was another time that we did a blood administration. I got intercepted by the truck with blood, and we had like 5 minutes left at the hospital. In that 5 minutes, they were fucking the supervisor that showed up with blood, fucking rock star. Like, everything was hung, the warmers were turned on, everything was flowing, and we had the patient improving mentation, improving vital signs, everything by the time we got to the hospital. That fucking quick. Absolutely love it. Massive instant gratification. So, things like that I've gotten to be a part of, um, it's just been really cool. Like, I've gotten to see some neat stuff. I've gotten to work for a variety of different services, and I've gotten to see things from different perspectives and applications in different services in different areas. And so I feel like, no, obviously, I'm not an expert on anything, but the breadth of experience I have had has helped inform a lot of my thoughts and opinions on things, realizing the diversity of application. And hell, looking in the comments section, there's people that'll pipe up and say, well, my service does this and this and this. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? So it's such a diverse field, and unfortunately I think that's one of our weaknesses, is we're almost too diverse. We have too little consistency, both in our culture, but even just in our actual clinical applications. In our operational applications, just not a lot of consistency. So anyway, you asked what kind of services I worked for. That's kind of the long and short of it. Kind of gotten to do everything. I actually started as a driver technically in 2012. So I've literally filled, the entire gamut of EMS life. And I've tried to remember where I came from and respect the people that are still there, the people who are drivers that are starting out, that, they're still deciding what they want to do, if they want to get in the CMS thing, and they should be treated with respect as well. Oh, and speaking of that, actually, that leads me to the last exchange, and this one was fun. So if you're on TikTok, go to the video. I did this 2 days ago, and it was the thumbnail is ALS versus BLS. And we had a comment here from Kevin, and Kevin's been a frequent supporter of the channel and stuff. Like, we've always had good interactions with him, but him and Rescue Knowledge Study Guides had a very interesting exchange. Now, I hate the fact that TikTok jumbles the order of comments. I don't know why. It doesn't make fucking sense. But I'm going to read a couple of the highlights here because this got kind of spicy. And so Kevin's original comment on this video about, do EMTs get to decide or weigh in on whether or not a call is ALS or BLS? And so Kevin's comment was, you're a team. Ultimately, as being the medic, it's my decision. One thing, though, I've never called them my EMT. Because I made a reference in the video to my EMTs. And I clarified, I said, I use my EMT very loosely, not in a possessive or superior kind of way. I've always been supportive and defensive of my partners. And really, for me, that's where it comes from. Like, hey, you're my partner. Like, I take a certain amount of responsibility for you. And I, obviously expect the same in return. That's the way it should be. So I think that for me, saying my EMT, it's not like, oh, they're mine, like a ownership in that sense of it. Just hey, these are my EMTs. Like the people I work with, it's no different than saying my partner. It's the exact same fucking thing. Well, then Rescue Knowledge comes in and says, I call them my EMT because that's my partner. We are a little unit. I'm their medic too. It's not condescending. Kevin comes back with, I think it is. I just call them partner. Rescue Knowledge, trying to, be sort of polite. Just says, that's your opinion, and gives a little heart smiley face. And trying to see. Oh, and Kevin just responded, yes, it is. And then, again, the order is fucked up. A rescue knowledge comes back. Again, that's your opinion. I firmly disagree that it's inherently rude/condescending. I'm sorry you appear to treat people in a way or that could only be condescending. You won't change my mind. We can agree to disagree. Have a great day. Kevin comes back with, you don't know how I treat people. I've always treated my partners with respect no matter what their level is. Being a paramedic doesn't mean I'm any more important than anyone else. So I don't disagree with either of them at this point. Like, Kevin's got a point. He chooses not to use that terminology. Fine, kudos, good for you. But rescue knowledge also brings up a good point. Hey, it's personal preference. Like, I call him this way. It's not rude. It's not condescending. Booyah. Like, let's leave it alone. Well, Kevin comes back. Oh, no, I already read that part. And rescue knowledge replied, yet here you are pretending I said or think something I don't. It's not condescending. I frankly do not care if you think it is for some illogical reason. Have a day. And that's where it jumbles up the comments, but them two got in it for a bit. Guys, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. This is not a hill to die on. This is not going to get us anywhere. This is not going to further anything positive. Okay. Kevin, you don't like to say my EMT. Cool. Awesome. Don't care. Rescue knowledge. You disagree. You don't think it's condescending. I agree with you. Cool. It doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't. So I love you guys. I love the engagement, and I think that these kinds of conversations demonstrate what we're struggling with in this job, and that there's a need for us to communicate well, not just shout at each other. There's a lot of noise in this job, in this profession. There's a lot of just chatter. And yet we really need to focus on the actual signals that we're sending. We need to actually focus on the content of what is important and what we should be communicating to each other. So I didn't get involved further with the conversation because, A, they were generally respectful to each other. There was no name calling. There was no, cursing at each other, whatever. Like, it was obvious they weren't going to get along and they weren't going to agree on it, and they just fucking dropped it. So kudos to you guys. But it is okay to agree to disagree. This is one of those examples of something that is part of an art form. This is part of how you present yourself to everybody else. Cool. Whatever works for you, my guy. Both of you. It's fine. Let's shake hands. Let's work together and communicate together to make EMS better and to actually fix these issues, curb these issues. And then we can look at a sustainable future for this industry. But until we stop stabbing ourselves in the back, it's not gonna help. So, anyway, this is our first comment section episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I rambled for a little bit, only 6 videos, and I talked for almost an hour. But if you learned something, awesome. Share it with your friends. If you were offended, good. You probably should be. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.